guys. So, all right, spoilers. Past this point. All right, so I'm going to actually jump over to full screen shot of, I guess, the opening scene. So this is our opening shot. Can you see?
Yes, I can see our opening shot. Yes.
Okay, so this is where we start with I forget what his name is. Rooker.
Michael Rooker. Yeah.
Michael Rooker.
Yeah. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't actually know his name here. Actually,
he's Savant in this movie.
Savant, yes.
So he played Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy. This shot, I was talking to when we watched this with my wife. We thought it was actually a CGI shot because it's like a shot of a puddle, and they spin the camera around. But they actually on HBO Max they have a featurette of the equipment that they use. So that was an actual shot. They shot the puddle and got the reflection of the puddle. It was a very, very cool shot. There's a shot later on in the movie when Peacemaker is fighting Flag, and they take it. It's all in Peacemaker's helmet, and I think that was an actual shot that they decided to do as well. It was a really, really cool shot because I think in the past they would have probably did that in CGI. They tried to. There's also like a behind the scenes featurette on HBO Max. He tried to do everything as much as possible practically. I mean, King Shark of course isn't practical, and Sorrow isn't practical. But like, they were in real buildings. They weren't like on sets. They tried to blow up things as much as possible. So yeah. So yeah, we get an introduction to the team here. So we get Captain Boomerang is back from the original, like we said. We get Blackguard, played by I forget the guy from SNL. What is his name?
Pete Davidson.
Pete Davidson, yeah. And I was Jai Courtney is who's playing Boomerang, right?
He was the character that I was mentioning in the non-spoiler part, where I think that Pete Davidson, even though he did appear a little bit during this movie, I think it because of the context of the flashback, it really gave me some kind of like rooting interest at least for him a little bit.
Yeah.
He made it appealing.
Yeah, I mean in the flashback he was sort of like not nice to the main character, Bloodsports, but yeah,
right.
we saw him in the flashback. I thought when we went to the flashback, we were going to see more characters. I guess we did see Weasel as well, but most of the people who bite it at the beginning, we don't see anymore, and that's before before the credits even roll. All these people die, but
right.
They got to take a trek home for being in a movie, so it doesn't really matter.
Right, exactly.
Even Nathan Fillion, I think nerds want him to be in everything, and he wasn't really in this movie much. But he got to take a trek home for a movie. It wasn't like a television show, so
it's very fascinating because they actually, some of them actually bit the dust, before they showed their opening credit, which was I was just like, they're already dead. Like, why are you showing their name? They're dead already. Yeah. I've never seen that. That was very fascinating.
Yeah. That's right. Oh, we got their names, the name of the actors. I commented on that to my wife. It's like, they're saying Nathan Fillion's name, but I don't think he's not going to be in the rest of this movie unless they're going to do a flashback. He's gone. Him and all these people are gone. They're putting all their names up here. It was funny. It was really funny.
That was very insane. I think that kudos to James Gunn for that type of creativity there. That like, oh yeah, they're dead already, but yeah, opening credits, here they are.
Yeah. All right. So we had after Blackguard, we had Mongal. Played by, I forget what her name is, Mayling Ng. So I have to go look up her name. So Blackguard, Flula Borg plays Javelin. And there's Nathan Fillion playing T.D.K. Drinking some pip. Sean Gunn played Weasel. He did the mocap for Weasel, just like he did some of the mocap for Rocket Raccoon in the Guardians movie. He also shows up. He also does a cameo yelling at a Polka Dot Man later on in the movie.
Yep.
So yeah, this is the sacrifice. This is the actual Suicide Squad, the one who is mostly going to die at the beginning of the movie, and of course we have Harley Quinn as well, who we know has some plot armor because they want Harley Quinn to show up in lots of different things. So we thought that she was going to be fine, and we also probably thought that of this team, this Team A, which we didn't know there was two teams when we were watching this. We thought that Rick Flag was going to make it out as well, but
right,
yeah,
right, so exactly.
Go ahead.
Yeah, very very interesting that they kind of like showed that, and then yeah, you kind of figured from all the previews and things like that most of these guys are gonna die and stuff like that. But look at the American flag. I mean, look at that right behind them with that screenshot. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, the visuals.
I mean that just kind of brings up American propaganda. And I'll get to that later on. But like that's just like very rich American propaganda there.
Yeah, the visuals in this movie are great. It was very very well shot. Very well. He composed a lot of great shots that you could screenshot. So I was thinking of actually getting video, but you don't have to get video to actually see to get what's going on, because he it's obvious that he worked closely with his cinematographer to set up shots that would be really arresting like this one. And they're all throughout the movie. If you pause a frame, and it's just a cool shot.
Yeah.
So they head off to Corto Maltese, which is a common location within DC Comics. I mean, it's not a real island, but it's a common location. I think I was talking to my wife about this. We watched Young Justice together, and I think there were a couple episodes where the kids in Young Justice had to be deployed out to Corto Maltese. Apparently, there's all kinds of like seedy things that are happening there. So it's a fake, just like they have fake. DC more often than Marvel have fake countries that are supposed to be analogs to the real countries in the world. So they have some fake Middle Eastern countries. They have some fake Western Eastern Bloc countries, and this is their fake South American country, Corto Maltese.
Yeah, pretty much Central American, South American.
Right.
If you remember from if you ever watched the animated Dark Knight Returns, there's a lot of that kind of intonations to Central America during that history of the time there. So yeah.
So we get Waller and her team in the control room as well. And they're making bets, and she's giving them side eye. This is actually when they realize, and they're all jumping off the ship, and they realize that a Weasel can't swim.
Can't swim.
So she's giving one of her teammates, her subordinates, because obviously it wasn't her job to figure that out. It's one of them. So she's like, what was? Yeah. Viola Davis is awesome in this role. She does Amanda Waller right, because I've seen many iterations of her in animation, and this is a really great iteration of Amanda Waller.
Yeah, she's been very consistent throughout in terms of all the DCU movies, like just giving the character a lot of gravitas, and also just making sure that she does the character very very well, and she's an amazing actress anyway. So just to get her to do it is just great, actually. Yeah. Totally great.
So as you said at the beginning, Black Flag sells them out, so they find that they're under fire immediately, and this whole sequence is hilarious and awful in lots of different ways. As you said, it's sort of like James Gunn is showing off and saying this is what you're in for, even before the credits start. Because you get the normal Suicide Squad, roll call, because Rick Flag does a roll call to Savant about all the people. You get the mission, and then almost all of them die. We get to see what T.D.K can do in his his powers are pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
I thought his ridiculous on so many levels, like the detachable kid.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe his arms are going to move faster. It just they're very slowly moving through the air. He's not even punching anybody. He's just messing with them. It's like they're mostly just confused before they decide to shoot his arms.
That was just a really great gag. I just think I just believe that's all James Gunn right there. That just like with that kind of comedic timing and just laugh out loud silliness. It's just like, who can pull that off? I mean, seriously. I mean, any director that can pull that off is that just has to be totally brilliant. I mean, if you can't pull that off, it can be very off-putting. Number one, and number two, you're eligible for like one of the Razzie awards if you can't pull it off with like almost perfect execution. Mm-hmm. So kudos for him to kind of like, put it out there, but also execution-wise, very, very good.
Yeah. So we lose we lose most of our team here, and we think I think at the end of at the end of this sequence we think that pretty much everyone is dead, because we cut back like a couple days after Waller tells them to stand their ground, because after they were ambushed and they were sold out by Blackguard, and we see one by one all of them die. Savant runs away and Waller blows his brains out. So this entire movie was really well written and really well planned for a couple reasons. So like this very clearly explains what the Suicide Squad is, who Waller is, what kind of missions they go on, and this is all before the credits. How she's not messing around. She doesn't care about these people as long as they stay on mission. Right. And you get more character development with her, of course, after the credit scenes, because you see her threatening a child. But
yeah, I know.
But even before the credits, you get a sense of everyone, all the major characters here. So yeah, so I think we said enough about the beginning sequence. We get a flashback of, like I said, her recruiting Bloodsport. And I found this interesting for a couple reasons, but my main reason is it sort of parallels the conversation that Will Smith has with his daughter in the original one. But James Gunn, I think, put this in here. He did the same thing with a daughter who's sort of wayward. I don't know if she was in trouble as well, or he just wanted to like talk. I think he had a much more tender relationship with his daughter. I think he put this in here to basically say, I know we swapped out one black dude for the lead and put out another black dude for the lead.
Right.
But these are not the same guys at all. They're basically just cursing at each other. They do not like each other at all. He's not. Yeah. They tried, even though Will Smith was a bad guy, to make him super likable. He's not. They're not trying to make him likable. He's despicable, just as despicable as everyone else. And his daughter hates him for legitimate reasons, for good reasons, and yeah, this I like the sequence for that reason alone, and also their conversation is funny, because he's making fun of her for getting arrested for stealing something so stupid. So yeah, that right. I appreciated that.
Yeah, I think that definitely kind of, again, there were rumors that, whether or not Will Smith will be back. But then when they cast Idris Elba, they were like, okay, so people are like saying, well, is it basically he's playing Deadshot again? No, he's not. He's playing a different character. And then basically, from this movie and from the previous movie that Will Smith's character was much more, sympathetic, because he's doing it for his child, but this one is just like, yeah, I'm not doing it for you. You're nothing to me, that type of sort of thing. So definitely a great contrast, but Idris Elba just like really knocked it out of the park in this role. He just really, really killed it. So I think that, he deserves to be the main character of this movie, and great character development throughout for his character.
Yeah, I don't. So like, I wouldn't take it to as far as say that he doesn't care about her, because otherwise he wouldn't have gone on the mission. Because she does. Waller does threaten her life, so he doesn't care. He doesn't care if she gets arrested, because he thought, okay, maybe a year of juvie would toughen her up, but Waller has completely different plans for her. She has a more sinister plan, and then we have this very tense scene between them where he's about to kill her. Because she basically threatened her life. She said, she's not 14, she's 16, which means she can be tried as an adult in Louisiana, and she might come here, and accidents happen. So yeah,
that was just pure evil. I was just like, wow, that's so deep. And I'm like, man, like Marvel can't do anything like that. I mean, that's just hard. That's just really hardcore. I don't even think Marvel would ever kind of go like step
even
on that line or even over that line. That was just like, wow, that's pure evil. And I mean, we have characters in Marvel, Valentina, for example, and also Nick Fury, but they're not. They're more lovable than Amanda Waller. And it's just like, wow.
I think on the range, probably Valentina is probably closer to Amanda Waller, but we don't know yet, because we don't know yet. But yeah, Amanda Waller is just interesting to watch. And she's I don't know if she's amoral. She's just single-minded. She has a very specific kind of morality, and it's around protecting the interests of the America at any cost. Which is interesting to see embodied in a black woman who, I mean, in a black woman who in the comics, I think she has at least one PhD. One of them is in political science, and she's just like a very, very accomplished character.
Yes.
Who's always in control of the room. So yeah. So yeah, the opening sequence and how she gets him to go on this mission is very cold-blooded. The opening sequence of after the credits. So yeah, after that we get another introductory to everyone in the his team, the B team. So we get Peacemaker, played by John Cena.
Yeah.
And there's a little joke there about how everyone has unique abilities, and he has basically the exact same backstory, except for his father was Bloodsport's backstory is that his father trained him to be a killer since he was a child, and Peacemaker's backstory is that his father was trained him to be a mercenary, a killer since he was a child. Only difference is that Bloodsport's father was a mercenary and Peacemaker's father was a soldier, but still the same exact thing. So Bloodsport is like, are you having a laugh? Are you joking? Yeah. So they compete throughout the movie. And then we have Nawe. I forget how you pronounce his name, but it's King Shark in the comics. King Shark in Ratcatcher 2.
Ratcatcher 2, yeah.
I think her name was Noelle.
I believe so. I didn't catch her name actually.
Yeah, they say it in this scene, but I think it's Noelle. And can't forget Sebastian, because Sebastian is a character as well in the movie. He definitely has scenes in the camera on him several times. So he's a character. He's part of the team. He comes with Ratcatcher too. And then we get one of the most interesting characters is actually David Dashmalkin playing Polka Dot Man. His backstory was very, very interesting and very tragic.
Mm-hmm.
He played this character very very well. Didn't he play? Am I mistaken? Did he? Not, he didn't play in. Um, did he show up in Batman Returns? Sorry, Batman. Or sorry, Batman Begins. Did he play like Scarecrow?
He was in Dark Knight.
Dark Knight.
He was one of the he was the one that he was one of the Joker's men in Dark Knight. So he was the one that was in the gurney that with Harvey Dent. So he and then he tried it. Harvey Dent was almost shot him, almost killed him.
Okay, so he was in Dark Knight. Okay,
and I think that he is also in Ant-Man. I believe.
Yeah,
I think he's one of the few.
Yeah,
that went to both. So I think he's one of the few actors that are straddling both.
So I heard the story about him. People like working with him because he's a nice guy. So that's why he shows up all over the place in major movies all the time. So it pays to be nice, apparently. So
yes, it does.
Yeah. So and he is actually also a really good actor as well. So it's also
yes, he was here. He definitely was here.
Yeah. So I think next we get. I think we cut back to the island because that was the flashback when they put together the team in the past, and then we cut back to the island of them. Like this again. This is another really great shot, right? You get a lot of team shots in this movie that he composes that looks really cool. That look really cool.
Right.
And they also use the landscape to put title cards up. Right here.
Definitely. No, definitely great shot overall. I think that they outdid Marvel here. I mean, not to kind of like put this as a rivalry type of thing, but it's kind of unavoidable in some ways, you know. But I think that definitely some of those kind of like ensemble shots, it's right up there. I would say it's right up there. Probably even better in some ways, better than what Marvel recently has been doing. You know.
Yeah. You know. Because I mean, all of Marvel's stuff, kind of, even though they give James Gunn a little bit of latitude, they give Taika some latitude to make their movies. They all sort of have to look like they're in the same universe, and this doesn't look. This is not so wildly crazy that it can't exist in the same universe as, say, the any of the other DCE movies. It might not be in the same universe as the Snyder Cut. That Snyder Cut is far too desaturated and dark to be in the same world as this movie. But all the other DC the movies that were actually released to the theater, I think this could be in the same world, even though this is campier. That's my wife's word for it. Campier and far more ridiculous in places. I think that this could exist in the same world as, say, the Wonder Woman movies, and also the Aquaman, of course, movie. So yeah. So we get a couple scenes of them in the jungle as they're using the other team as a diversion as they all die. So there's a couple. I think in this we get a little bit of the beginning of the backstory of Polka Dot Man. We see that there's something definitely going on with him because we see these growths on his body, but we don't at this point understand why he has growths on his body. I think this is also the scene when Killer Croc tries to eat Ratcatcher.
You mean King Shark?
King Shark. Sorry, yeah. King Shark. Yeah. Killer Croc was in the first one.
Right.
So yeah, that's what we find out a couple things. We find out there's something weird going on with Polka Dot Man. We figure out a truce with King Shark so he doesn't eat the rest of the team while they're sleeping. Ratcatcher 2 comes up with that truce, basically befriending him.
Right.
And also we find out that Bloodsport is very, very afraid of rats. We don't find out until later why he's afraid of rats. But yeah, that's
Right.
that. So we got a lot in the jungle before they are tasked to go and save Rick Flag.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been I've seen actual some reviews about this movie, and there has been criticism of the next sequence. The next sequence is them going to save Rick Flag, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
they were told by Waller, these are very dangerous people. You need to kill them.
Right.
But they were also taking some glee in killing these people, and they were all brown people. This is the only part of the movie where it was a little icky for me. I think people were complaining about most of the people who died in this movie were brown and black people, but it's also where the movie was set, right? But right here, they were kind of like competing to kill people, and then we find out at the end of the sequence that they weren't even bad guys. They were
Right.
freedom fighters, and
Right.
they killed some of these people in their sleep.
Mm-hmm.
They killed several women, which I guess equal opportunity killing.
Right.
But they were taking too much glee in the death here. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's interesting because um, it reminded me of when I was watching it. It reminded me of all those films, especially Predator from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of that, the gratuitousness of it, and any of those like Schwarzenegger movies back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of, I think that him being from that generation, it may be because he was trying to recreate that, but because of where we're at culturally, I can definitely see why people are like, hey, wait a second, this is not cool, this is not happening. But I mean, I'm not trying to condone any of it, but I think that within the breadth of the story, like you said, they are in a foreign country as well. But as I initially watched it, I didn't really see it that way. It's probably because I just saw it as though it's just like gratuitous murder. I mean, that's basically what it was, and or video game murder to be quite frank. So yeah, but it's very interesting that you brought up that point, and that people are bringing up that point that yeah, we should kind of evolve from that type of mindless violence that happens to people, and just treat it as though it's almost like a sport in some ways.
Yeah, I think also the criticism is not necessarily. So I understand what you're saying from the '80s, and yes, he grew up in that era. He's not that much older than I am. I think he's in his 50s or something like that, or his mid 40s. Um, yes, but those sequences, while gratuitous, and we should probably evolve from there weren't played for laughs. So the fact that
Mm-hmm.
he was doing it, and also he's played for laughs at the end. It was played for laughs during the sequence because it's obvious they were playing around,
Right.
while killing people, and
Right.
then they at the end when figure out that they're freedom fighters, is like, oh whoopsie, that was kind of.
Yeah, yeah, that did disturb me a little bit. I was just like, damn, like he went there. That's crazy. And I think that the leader of the freedom fighters, who's I think she was in I Am Legend. I think she was in I Am Legend with Will Smith.
Yeah.
And then so she was just like shocked. She was like, what just happened? Like,
Yeah.
where are my guys? Where are my people?
Yeah,
And
why didn't they alert me? And then they just
yeah,
see,
yeah,
yeah. And she makes a good point. I mean, I don't know if they needed the sequence to make the point they made, that it's just typical Americans just coming in, guns blazing,
yeah.
without even thinking, and they killed a bunch of people that could have probably helped them get through to what their objective. They killed a lot of people. They killed over 20 people when they went through that camp. So yeah.
But maybe Nathan, that might be the message. It's like, hey, you Americans are reckless, and you just kind of shoot and ask questions later, and it's like, hey, maybe he is trying to make a point with that. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. I'm not. I don't really know as to how James Gunn thinks about these type of things, but yeah, he could be making a point there too.
Yeah. So after, I mean, they make a deal. I think she forgives them a little bit too quickly, but I mean, I don't know. She's in the middle of the jungle, and she has to make strange bedfellows because I mean the regime has a fair amount of firepower, and she's gonna try to get them through the jungle to their contact, Milton, who again also he has a death later on that's also kind of played for laughs, which is not cool.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Yeah. So she's going to help him get to their contact. So we cut back to hearing a little bit about Starro with the Thinker, which is played by Peter Capaldi, who played Doctor Who for 3 seasons. Yeah, he played Doctor Who for 3 seasons. I think it's a little bit of a waste of Peter Capaldi. I mean, Peter Capaldi. I think he was fine in this part, but they didn't really have much. He didn't really have much for him to do. He just played an evil person who tortured space creatures and also people, because it's not like he experimented on people as well. So yeah, we get a little bit of the Thinker. It's he also what I also will give James Gunn credit for. He doesn't shy away from the more ridiculous looks of the villains. He put Polka Dot Man in the polka dots. He put Peacemaker with that weird helmet, and he has the Thinker here with these bolts coming out of his head, and that's what he looks like. That's what he looks like in the comics, and they just went there with it. So yeah, didn't shy away from it, and the reason why I appreciate it, and I was talking to my wife about this, characters like Ratcatcher and Polka Dot Man could be ridiculous, but he thought through the script well enough to actually make you care about both of those characters with their backstory, and also set up sequences so that show how their ridiculous powers could be very, very useful in the right circumstances. So yeah,
I mean that's just kind of like the play from what he did with Guardians. I mean that's why Guardians was so successful, because it's like a talking tree and a raccoon.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought? Like nobody would in their right mind would be like, you want to care for those two, but you did. Over the course of all the movies after Guardians, you really cared for those two characters. So I am not surprised that James Gunn was able to kind of do it with these weird or silly characters. I think that it Polka Dot Man and also Ratcatcher 2 were probably on my list of besides Bloodsport, the most compelling out of all the characters that are in the movie. So
yeah, I think that's what I was talking about when at the top of the review, when I was talking about a few characters get actual character development, but not a lot of them. You don't really get into the motivations of the Thinker or even Peacemaker. He's getting his own show, so maybe that's why I didn't go into a lot of detail there. But you don't like him throughout the movie, and at the end you really don't like him, Peacemaker. But those 3 characters in particular, they get some characterization, and you actually feel for them more than I felt from anyone in the original Suicide Squad movie. Just from the little background. Well, that's not true. I think you felt
Diablo wasn't too bad.
You felt for Diablo. You also felt for Will Smith's character, and Harley Quinn. I think those are really the only 3 that got a lot of characterization. I mean, you liked Rick Flag because he also had a connection to the villain, Enchantress. So, but most of the other characters did not in that movie get a lot of things. So I guess it's pretty much the same as this movie, because not most of the other characters didn't get a whole lot of emotional, either. But I feel like I liked the backstory of the backstories of these 3 were a little bit more varied and interesting.
Yes, definitely.
Than what you got in the first movie. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So yes, moving on from here, we check in with what Harley is doing because actually on the battlefield, Harley
Mm-hmm.
was captured with Javelin's javelin.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, she doesn't know what she's going to do with that javelin, but it'll come into play later on. So she thinks she's gonna. She actually was in a hole, and then they dress her up, and she doesn't know what's going on. And they have this sequence where she starts to fall in love with this guy. So I've seen some criticism of her falling in love with this captor, right? So like,
Mm-hmm.
do you know who plays the president?
Not sure. I don't. I
President
don't recognize him. Yeah, I
President
don't recognize him actually. I'm not sure.
President Luna.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a day long love affair that ends in um, with them sleeping together,
Right.
and then his death.
Yeah.
Which I mean, as it was happening, even though they were having sex, I was like, she's gonna kill him at some point. I didn't know
Yeah.
why she was gonna kill him, and the reason why she killed him made sense for her character. But I was like, at the time I thought, she's horny and she wants to have sex, and once she has sex, he's done. She's done. He's not necessary anymore. But I think the what James Gunn wrote for her to say is a good progression of her character based upon what happened to her in her own movie.
Mm-hmm.
Her breaking up with the Joker
Mm-hmm.
specifically. But there has been criticism that this was written like somewhat of a male fantasy. Like, would a regular woman in this situation be okay with her captor saying, "Oh, I love you and I want to marry you," with the thing hanging over her head? If she says no, she's going to be tortured. So that is some criticism I've seen online. I mean, I didn't bump up against this as much as I bumped up against them killing a bunch of freedom fighters. I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
see that. I don't know. I think it's possible from a certain point of view to have issues with these sequences, but I didn't have the issues that others have had with these sequences, just because Harley is crazy and unpredictable, and she's been played this way, and she's been played as someone who is somewhat of a sexual being, somewhat of a person who kind of is going with her id, and she kind of likes weird situations, and this is not what she expected. She expected to be in a hole, and they started to dress her up. So I could her acting like this didn't seem weird to me, and I didn't really get hung up on the fact that she was a prisoner, and she's actually being, and she the her being able to actually give consent to any of this is
Mm-hmm.
suspect because she's a prisoner,
Right.
which is true. But I wasn't really thinking that when I watched it. So I don't know. Did you?
Yeah, I agree. I think that I agree to a certain extent. I think that I was actually more distracted because it pulled me away from the movie. That whole sequence,
Mm-hmm.
just pulled me away from it. So
Okay. So
that's the thing. That's the thing I had, in terms of the character development. I mean, it was kind of like, in some ways, it was kind of like not show but tell
mm-hmm.
for the whole time, like that part where she killed him afterwards, and she was just kind of explaining, the whole kind of her whole development throughout the movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it was more, if they did some things in which they were more showing than telling, it made it less distracting. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I just didn't get that whole sequence that much. Like, I didn't feel it necessary for the love sequence to be in the movie. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I can understand from the standpoint that she might be, yeah, she might be, very highly sexualized or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Sure, but at this, just to get out of prison, yeah, but could there have been a better way to approach her getting out? Maybe because she is a very resourceful and very clever individual. I mean, yeah, she's very clever, and was there another way to do it besides using her sexuality? That might be the only question I have.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, I think you dislike it for different reasons than people who are disliking it. But to your point, I think that they could have jumped from her being captured in the battlefield to her escaping. Like when she killed the guy and escaped, the whole middle section of her having the love affair was sort of a detour, was sort of a distraction. It was sort of Harley's fun day off in the middle of everyone trudging through the jungle. So yes, in that sense, it probably could have been cut. And it wasn't the most interesting part of what we saw in Harley. The most interesting part that we saw of Harley was probably her escaping. So they could have cut to her escaping and from her being after she got captured, and it wouldn't have made the movie any worse. It probably would have made it. Yeah. Probably would have made the movie a little tighter. So.
Yeah.
All right. So after she kills him, we jump back to the main plot of the movie, like you said. They're in the jungle trying to meet up with Milton, and they're starting to get a little tired. And we get character development from this scene and the next scene. We get character development of the three main characters, basically. Not the three main characters. Three of the main characters who actually make it to the end. Ish. One of them is Polka Dot Man. So we finally get the backstory about what happened to him with his interdimensional virus, that he has to expel these polka dots twice a day because his mom experimented on him and his siblings, and some of them survived, some of them didn't. I can't tell whether or not he is actually seeing everyone as his mom, or like is that part of the virus, or he just hates her so much that she shows up as everyone when he's staring. Like he says that he just has a picture of people as his mom to kill them, but everyone seems to look at it like his mom.
Right. That wasn't fleshed out very well, but I just think that it was very weird as to whether or not it is part of the virus, or is it because he really had a very, deep animosity against his mother for experimenting on him. So he just sees everything in the world as like his mother, and he just wants to kill all of them. So like even in this scene, it's like, does he want to kill everybody there then?
Yeah, exactly. This wasn't clear. It was like he asked. Ratcatcher asked, "Where's your mom now?" And he says everywhere. But in the previous scene, he's like, "I don't like killing, but I just imagine everyone is my mom." So as he, like you said, does he want to kill all of them? I mean,
so if he doesn't see his mother, then does he not kill? So if he saw in this scene, if he saw them in their kind of like their regular characters, he won't kill them. Then he's basically saying that he sees his mom here for every one of them. So that means, is he going to kill all of them? Like eventually, is that what he wants to do, or is he trying to restrain himself from doing that? That's it. Yeah, it was kind of weird in that way.
Yeah, and also, as I said, it wasn't clear whether or not it was the virus making him see his mom all everywhere, or his antipathy towards her. So while I liked his backstory, I think my wife complained that it could be fleshed out a little bit more, and they didn't flesh it out a little bit more. And I wasn't sure if I agreed with her last night, but actually, now that as I'm talking through it with you, I think they could have probably fleshed it out a little bit more, especially around the point of how and why he's seeing his mother, and in what situations is he seeing his mother, especially since he says that he needs to see his mother to kill. And we also see him dancing with his mother and like everyone around him. He's dancing with everyone around him, and they all show up to him as his mother, and he's okay with that. So so they could have fleshed him out a little bit better. But I did appreciate a little bit of backstory. I think the reason that you connect with this character is a little bit of the backstory, and also David's performance. Like he really seems pained. He really seems like this is a terrible. These growths are terrible. Seeing his mom everywhere is terrible. He in the theater when when Waller is doing the debrief. He says that I hope I die. So yeah, you can see that he doesn't really. He's a very depressed person, and he plays it that way.
Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So from there, we get the next. The next scene of character development in the minibus after they meet up with Milton. They drive into the city, and then we get a little bit about Ratcatcher 2's background, her father having a drug addiction and teaching her about how to control rats, and then the addiction takes over and he dies. And then we find out what happened with Bloodsport, why he doesn't like rats.
Right. Very traumatic experience for him, that he was trapped for 24 hours with hungry rats. And yeah, I definitely see childhood trauma is definitely one thing that can lead to fear of as an adult. Definitely.
No matter how hard you are, if that happens to you as a child, every time you see something like that, you're going to be triggered. You can see it later on, when she uses the rats to overcome Starro. Like Idris also plays it very, very well. He seems petrified because they're like crawling all over him, and he's probably you can see in his character he's taken back to where he was as a boy in that crate. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, they both do. I think they both are doing really good work in this movie. I think that their two stories are fleshed out a little bit more, just because you get a little bit with him and his father, what happened with him and his father, but you also get the connection that he has with his daughter. There's what he went on this mission for her, and then there's a little bit of button scene at the end with her as well, as she sees him on television. Yeah. So there's a couple more scenes with the guys in the club. Like I said, they dance, they drink, they do what they need to do because they're at this club to catch up with the Thinker. They capture him, and the three, I guess, heavies on the team, or the three military trained guys on the team, get captured and then escape. The sequence was pretty cool. I guess they were in this armored truck. I feel like everything was believable until the armored truck started to tumble, and then they walked out of the armored truck. Without. That was sort of like. That was sort of like a Black Widow movie sequence.
Yeah, that was very Black Widow, definitely. There were some other ones later on with Harley Quinn that I thought, you're kind of inching toward Black Widow.
Yeah.
There was actually one other scene, I don't know if you're going to present it later, but like of Bloodsport, like going down different levels, like Tower of Terror life. How did you survive that?
That wasn't as, I didn't have as much of an issue with that one because buildings do pancake like that, so he wouldn't have been able to survive several stories, but they do pancake like that. But
there was one scene right before that he was like falling down. I thought he broke his legs. I like that would be broken legs right there. But I don't know how he was not had his legs broken like right before that pancake collapse.
He did fall quite a way, and then he landed on his feet. So that initial fall before it started to pancake seemed like a big distance. That seemed like a Black Widow distance.
Yeah, that's the broken. Like two broken legs. Like,
although he didn't hit a bunch of things and then land on his feet like Black Widow did, which is made it a little bit more believable than the Black Widow fall in the movie. She hit several things, and then and I'm not sure if the writer said, well, these things that she's hitting is breaking her fall. No, these things that she's hitting are breaking bones. That's what that would do. That would break bones.
Yeah, sometimes I think they need to make it. I think there might be something that Deadpool might do in the future where they're like rolling down. I mean, he's gonna do it. I think he's gonna do it like rolling down something, and then they're all like dead pretty much. And I think that yeah, it's kind of overplayed that they survived that. That was kind of a little bit unbelievable to me.
Yeah, it's yeah. I think I was with this sequence until until the armored truck started to roll down the hill. Like I was like, okay, they're going through a lot of cars here, and no one's driving the car, but it is a giant armored truck, so it would be able to go through these things without it being scathed much. But they're very squishy human bodies in that very armored truck tumbling like this would have broken several things.
Yes,
And they would have had much internal bleeding. So it's a lot of suspension of disbelief for this sequence. And then they had the cool shot at the end of the sequence to like, oh, they're all fine, and they all survived this.
No blood, nothing. Yeah, I mean, they survived all of it. Yeah.
So yeah. I don't know if it took me out of the movie, but it definitely. Well, it took me out. It took me out of the movie a little bit. It was like,
it did. It definitely did.
Yeah. So yeah. So they survived that, and then they hatch a plan to go save Harley, because inside of the truck is when they hear that Harley is being captured, or had been captured. So they go with Operation Harley. But, Harley doesn't really need to be saved because she's Harley.
Of course not. Yeah, she's Harley, yeah.
Because she's Harley. So we cut back to the scenes of Harley being, after she kills Luna, being tortured by the far less graceful, far less subtle second in command, who is now the president.
Right.
I knew she was going to get out of here, but I thought she was actually a little delirious, or at least she was a little pain. But apparently she was not. She was just playing possum the entire time, and playing as though she was knocked out, because she kills this dude immediately, and and then proceeds to start killing everyone in the entire facility, in very stylish fashion. This is the sequence that I was talking about earlier, that was just as good as I think the police station sequence. I think was the best.
Yes,
sequence
in the Birds of Prey. Yep.
In Birds of Prey. This wasn't as long because we had the sequence over by the cells in the Birds of Prey, and then we had the sequence after that in the evidence locker, and and so this wasn't as long, but it definitely had a lot more depth, because she was doing hand-to-hand combat there, and she had a little bit of hand-to-hand combat here, but she also had a gun, so she was killing a lot more people. I also appreciated the flourishes here, showing sort of what's going on in her head, the crazy that's in her head.
Yeah, pretty much.
When she's killing people.
Yeah.
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 So this
great screenshot right there of of all the different colors. Again, James Gunn is just really a master of this type of scenery.
Yeah.
From what we've seen in Guardians and stuff like that. We're kind of used to it by now, but at the same time, it's still pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, like I said, he has a lot of screenshots like this, that a lot of composed shots that you can freeze a frame, and it's just really cool. So exactly. So she gets out, she takes a cab, and she notices that these guys are scaling up a wall. She's like, she's like, oh, you came to save me. Yeah.
And it was great. It was a great kind of comeback for her. It's like, maybe I should just go back up there and just. That was that was probably one of the funniest lines of the movie right there. It's like, I could go back up if you want me to. It's like, no. It's all good.
Yeah. Plus Ford is like, yeah, that's patronizing. Then we hear about the I guess we're on the rooftop, and we hear their plan for the back and forth, and she has some funny lines here as well, her crazy. So this sequence is mostly, I mean, it's mostly just telling you what's going to happen next, but it's also just funny just because of Harley Quinn in the background, saying, I am walking back and forth. Because everyone's walking back and forth. uh, uh, so yeah, then we go to Jotunheim. This is another really great shot.
Yeah.
This is another really great shot, and I don't think anyone has done this kind of shot before. You see the team shots all the time, but the team shot through the rain, like this is a very very cool shot. I think you may have seen something like this like in a movie, a music video, with like a bunch of characters like this, but not like in a superhero movie or even like an action movie. You haven't seen this many characters kind of arrayed like this. You can sort of see them, kind of see their silhouettes, but you can also see the color, they're backlit. It's a really beautiful shot.
Definitely. I think that this shot right here probably it rivals up to the kind of like the really best stuff of Endgame. You know, some of the more comic book-y shots that Endgame had. I mean, this is right up there in terms of the shot itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think from there we are. Well, there's a couple more shots of them close up. I guess gazing back at each other while going into battle, which is the obligatory. We're about to get into it. Shot back and forth. So then from there we get into Jotunheim and we hear basically after they start to set the charges, we hear the backstory of Starro. So they're setting. They get inside. They start setting charges, and we find out what the former ruling family, and I actually forget the last name, the surname. I know Luna was the guy who took over, but I forget the people who were in charge. But they were basically setting political prisoners and journalists here to be experimented on. I specifically tried to choose screenshots that weren't any gruesome, but this room, you had to be very selective not to get gruesome in this room because right next to this woman is a very terrible thing, and right next to that guy is also something very gruesome. But they changed Starro for the movie, so Starro for the show. Sorry, Starro in the comics, and also in most cartoons that I've seen, isn't fatal, but here he kind of hollows out people's brains, and if you get one of those on you, you're dead. You're just walking corpses, which made again a little bit of body horror goriness, which I think was probably a little bit. It was unnecessary. There was kind of like I said the when he's not when he's not on a leash where that Disney provided Disney provided in the movies that he's done for them. This is where his mind goes for some reason. I think he could have made the point about the people who are being tortured are political prisoners and are journalists and their children without them all being dead. Although I guess that the fight with Peacemaker and Flag wouldn't have been as interesting or as heartfelt if they weren't all dead, but they are. They're just cages of dead people milling around. That they in earlier in the movie we hear there's like thousands of people that were sent there over the 30 years. So,
right. I think that definitely there's consequences of actions, and so I think this is where I didn't really have an issue with it because we've been clamoring for consequences, and there's really deep consequences to basically experimenting on an alien extraterrestrial being that you have no idea what's it about, and basically you didn't have the guts or the desire to experiment on it in
the U.S.
United States,
right?
And you basically went to a
brown country,
poorer or lesser known country and experimented on their people and unleashed that horrific being on them. So it's like again, there are consequences to these type of things, and again, we said before that comic books should have consequences, if we want to imitate real life. And so I think that, again, it's a very deep. I really felt that part was a very deep commentary on kind of the United States itself. I mean, it really went deep, and I was like, well, I didn't expect this to happen. Like, especially the interaction between Peacemaker and Rick Flag. That was really rich in terms of the deepness of how we question American exceptionalism, American imperialism, all those type of very complex questions. It's like compact in that fight scene,
right?
And it was like, whoa, I never expected that to happen. That's really, I never even, like, when I wanted to review the movie, I didn't think that I would be talking about this, but I'm talking about this, which is very, very interesting.
Yeah, like you said, there definitely is an examination of American exceptionalism, and also people who blindly, like Peacemaker does, assumes that might is right and America is always right, and he's going to maintain the peace regardless of the moral implications. And we get the other side of that conversation, or the other side of that argument, rather, in Rick Flag. And also, I think, obviously, the movie, the director and also the writer, who was the same person, because he wrote this, I think, maybe with a little bit of help, point of view is that Rick Flag is right, because, I mean, so blind jingoism is what this sequence is arguing against, even though it's arguing, it's nuance in that it's arguing against blind jingoism, but it's also Peacemaker wins, so it's also a recognition that point of view often wins out, because it's willing to go to the extreme, whereas the other point of view isn't willing to be as brutal with the way that they apply our point of view to the world. So it's interesting. Not only in that he kills Rick Flag, but in the fact that the good man dies, and even though he was the bad guy was defeated, he also survives in the end of the movie as well. And
right.
And those ideas, those jingoistic might makes right, American exceptionalism kind of ideas seem to always survive. Always, even if they come out of favor, they always seem to survive and pop back up, like Peacemaker did at the end of that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it'll be very interesting how they're going to examine that character. Because there is a rumor that they're going to continue some sort of series or anything with
they're
him.
Definitely going to. They've already greenlit it. They already have art for it. They posted art for it. The cover art for it already. So yeah.
So it'll be very interesting to kind of see how the writers and creators of that show is going to examine that type of American exceptionalism, or questioning that concept, that philosophy, because we talked about it a little bit in Falcon and Winter Soldier, but they presented it from a standpoint of race relations in this country, but this is more kind of like foreign policy, like international globalism, exceptionalism.
So they touched on that a little bit in the Falcon and Winter Soldier. But with the globalism, and also why the Flag Smashers were specifically, why the Flag Smashers were created, because of globalization, and also I think the critique in the Falcon and Winter Soldiers was a little bit more diffuse, in that it was talking about people in power in general. And America is, of course, a powerful country, so it was talking about people in power, like the Americans trying to reestablish borders, but other countries are also trying to reestablish borders. So they were trying to spread the blame for powerful countries, mostly developed countries, or developed or in the past, the previous terminology would be first world countries, but that terminology is outmoded and also very derogatory. So developed or more developed countries, kind of pushing other countries around, is what they
Right.
were, what the argument was, or what the critique was in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. However, the critique here is laser focused on the U.S. and how it specifically as a country kind of pushes other countries around and does what it wants to do immorally around the globe, to meet its own end. So yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder if audiences would pick up on this and whether or not they're going to question, who's right, who's wrong, or that. I mean, I think that definitely gave a very nuanced interpretation of it. That battle scene, that fight scene that they had with each other, and it gets people to try to discuss or at least open some debate as to who is right in that regard, and and it also makes us question again, America's role in the world and how there may be some good, but in this case, it definitely was not so good. But at the same time, you said, Nathan, that Peacemaker survived and Rick Flag died. So is that the lesson, the moral lesson in the story, or is it, him opening that discussion up or that debate up? Is that the takeaway that we should have?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to see whether or not the message in that is that Sean Gunn is cynical, even though he has the worldview closer to Rick Flag. He's cynical in that he thinks that, sure, you can have that point of view, but the people who have the opposite point of view seem to win a lot, even though they're not righteous. They seem to win a lot. We end up with presidents like Trump because they're bombastic and they tout that point of view, because it appeals to a lot of Americans who look at the country uncritically. So yeah. It's definitely, like you said, it makes you think more than you were expecting to think.
That's what I said. I was like, I never expected to. When I watched that scene, I was like, oh my, they are actually going there with this American exceptionalism thing, and I'm gonna have to end up talking about it, and it's gonna take a long time to kind of flesh it out. And I've been proven correct.
Yeah. All right, so I mean, we have been talking about that for a little while, so let's
just keep moving.
After this standoff, and also after the standoff, the standoff is kind of broken up by an explosion, and we find out what the explosion is later on, and Starro gets out. He quickly dispatches with the Thinker.
Yeah.
I don't have the more gruesome shot. The gruesome shot comes right after this.
Yeah.
In this. And they fight each other, and like I said, Rick Flag dies. And he catches up with a Ratcatcher, because Ratcatcher 2. Here's this whole conversation. Also, she sees Peacemaker kill Flag. And she's like, well, you just destroyed the evidence. Why do you have to kill me as well? She's like, well, because I'm thorough, is his what you call it. It's like, I guess she could go and tell someone, but who's going to believe her? She's a convict. I don't know if you need to be that thorough. It goes to what he was saying earlier in the movie, like when they're coming on the beach. It's like, he just the extremes that he would go towards for peace, what he thinks peace is, or what he thinks protecting the flag is. He said he would eat a beach full of that is crazy. And you kind of believe him at this point. Like, he would do anything because he has no ability to see nuance or to see the gray, or it's kind of black and white for him. America good. Everything else against America is bad.
Right.
And she's not even really against America. She's like, but she could be. So you got to cut off that got to what you call it. So yeah, so we before she gets shot, we jump back 8 minutes to where before she gets shot, we jump back 8 minutes to the other part of the team who are setting detonators, and they get ambushed, or the security inside the building catches up with them, and they shoot Milton. Like I said, this is another scene where they're making a little bit too much fun about the brown guy who's dead on the ground.
Yeah.
Then there's the sequence when I guess Polka Dot Man throws his polka dots and blows off the things too quickly. And then the building starts to collapse. So this is a little suspension of disbelief ridiculous. The building is falling down, and they're running in the opposite direction to get to the other side before it falls down. And that's when, like you said, the thing pancakes, and he has that large drop before it pancakes. Like I said, I don't have an issue with the pancaking, because that's how buildings actually do collapse. But that initial fall was quite a bit of a fall.
Yeah.
And then we have have another standoff, and this standoff ends quite differently for Peacemaker, because he takes Bloodshot actually takes his advice, because at the beginning you hear they call back to what Peacemaker said. He says that he gets even more dead target, and he's like, how do you get even more dead target? Because I use smaller bullets. He doesn't even touch the wound, so he just uses a smaller bullet to kill. Well, we think at this point he's being killed. Peacemaker. This is the most gruesome shot that I have in this deck, but there's a lot more in this movie. Like I said. So yeah. So they save. He saves Ratcatcher, but Starro is out, and then we get this part of the movie is basically the Suicide Squad against Starro the Conqueror.
Yeah. They actually, one of the guys actually mentioned the kaiju. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I see you doing that. Interesting.
Yeah. So what do you make of this sequence? This is the third act. I guess they actually broke the third act into two parts. There was what's happening at Jotunheim, the facility, and also the Starro thing. What did you? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that definitely. They are basically gonna die. You think that they're gonna die, and so. Out of like desperate kind of despair, we're almost gonna die type of thing. They kind of pulled together in some ways, and they had their Avengers moment pretty much, and they basically banded together and took down Starro basically. Yeah. So. It was a kind of a nice kind of callback to Avengers in some ways, like coming together, and Bloodsport doing the Captain, his best impression of Captain America, and they ended up defeating the character through teamwork, basically.
Yeah. So I mean, there's first the standoff outside of Jotunheim, where they're kind of bewildered, because the only person who was actually up there and actually understands what's happening is Ratcatcher, because everyone else who was in the room was dead. So
yeah, that's true.
Thinker, Flag, and Peacemaker, or we think Peacemaker, they're the only ones who actually know how this works, and she has to tell everyone to kind of cover their faces.
Right.
And then Starro starts to attack the city, as you said, and they get orders from Waller to turn back.
Yes,
basically because this is not a friendly country anymore. So unrest here is good for the United States. Again, showing the moral grayness and ambiguity, and also not even grayness. This is just the darkness of American foreign policy. and then she's hit over the head by one of her underlings. Now,
would that happen in real life? Seriously, I'm just being very serious here. That's not going to happen in real life.
That's not going to happen in real life, and also,
that's not going to happen. The cynical thing is that Waller is going to kill the Suicide Squad. Mission over, mission accomplished. America wins again. That's the cynical part. But this
America wins again. Yeah.
This is the part where it's like, America, no. We're not gonna go down that route. We're going to say that there's some righteous people that are out there, the good people that are out there that they're going to overcome this type of evilness.
I don't even know about them being righteous. I mean, all of these people are despicable, even the people in the control room, because they're betting on people. Even though these are bad guys, they're betting on people dying. So they're not. None of these people are great human beings. But there are limits, right? There are limits to how much you'll do. Everyone has their line. And apparently in the room, the people had their lines are not where Waller's. I don't think many people's lines are where Waller's lines. I don't think she has a line. I don't think she has a line.
Yeah, she had no line.
The only thing that didn't ring true for me is that we didn't see her kill these people after she woke up.
That's true. That's very true.
Now,
send them to Siberia, not Siberia, Alaska or something like that. Yeah.
In the previous movie, she killed a bunch of people in the control room who just knew too much. If you remember when the Suicide Squad didn't even know they were coming to save her, she killed everyone in the room without even thinking.
Yeah.
Without even thinking about it. So the fact that she didn't kill these people who hit her in the head is like. So my wife's thought is that the two people that she could see who were in front of her were the guy and the woman, and they're the only people that we actually see at the end of the movie. So maybe she did kill everyone else who was behind, because she doesn't know who hit her, but they were behind her, and she only knows two people were in front of her, and those are the only two people we see later. So maybe this is my headcanon that she killed everyone else. So that's the only way that doesn't like diminish Amanda Waller's character, because if she's as bad as they portrayed her in the past, there's no way she would have let those people live. Yeah,
absolutely.
But anyways, she gets knocked out for a little bit, and then we get a sequence of we get another hero shot of the team running into battle. With a lot fewer people now. Now we only have 5 out of the 14 that came to the island. Talk about Suicide Squad. So we have a hero moment with Polka Dot Man when he uses his power to kind of disintegrate the leg there. Unfortunately, he dies as well.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm a superhero, which is interesting. It's an interesting full circle moment for him, because his mother experimented on him to make him a superhero, and it basically just tortured him for all his life, and he just wanted to die. So before he died, he actually got to feel like a superhero for just a couple of moments. So
and then he dies.
Then he dies. Yeah. And he wanted to die. Yeah. Unfortunate. Yeah. I'm sure after he felt that he didn't want to die, but like before he felt that, he definitely wanted to die. So it's definitely tragic. And I'm not sure if it was necessarily played for laughs as much as other things, but it definitely was played for laughs a little bit, because he said, "I'm a superhero," and then they just
and then boom, it was like the gag,
Yeah. So then we get the sequence, like I said, with Ratcatcher and Bloodsport, where you can actually see how afraid he is. There's so many rats in the city. She must have called in some rats from the jungle as well, because there's so many rats in the city.
This was a little bit unbelievable to me as to like, how in the world are there so many rats on this island? There is no way, any way. Like, I can understand if it's a city, like a major.
I mean, it is. I think this is supposed to be like the capital, so you can imagine how many rats are in probably like New York, and this is. Yeah.
That could make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and we get a little bit more backstory of what with her father, and a little touching thing and we find out that it's Taika Waititi because, like, and when we saw him in the window, did you see that? Did you notice that it was Taika Waititi?
No,
yeah,
they kind of left it right to here, and we were like, "Ooh."
If you rewind it, because I did watch it again. If you rewind it and you watch those sequences again, you can, if you know it's Taika Waititi, you can see that it's Taika Waititi, but it's blurry enough because the flashback was in a mirror, in a glass, that you don't know this Taika Waititi when it's going past. So, but yeah, what he says to her is very touching. It's like she asks why rats, and he says, rats are the most lowly creatures people can imagine, and if they have purpose, then maybe all of us have purpose, which is another little sweet thing to put in the middle of this battle, which was again some good writing. I think there are definitely some places in this script where things go off the rail. I don't know that they necessarily needed to kill Polka Dot Man the way that they killed Polka Dot Man, but like right after that, we get this good scene and this flashback, which is nice. It's really good writing. So it's not perfect, and no script is, but this is a highlight of the script.
I would say so. Definitely.
So then we get Harley finally figuring out why she had to have the javelin, because all throughout the movie she's like, I haven't figured it out yet. I don't know. God it'll come to me, or Jesus, or one of those guys. And she figures out what it's for. It's to pierce this giant eyeball, so she can let the rats in to chew the nerves from inside his eye.
Oh gosh,
yeah, that was another gruesome shot, but it was also a beautiful shot as well, because I was actually thinking through it when I was watching it with my wife. Like, she's a full on doctor, and I'm just taking anatomy, so I actually know the parts of the body. It's like they actually thought through this. Most of your eye is mostly just liquid, so this is what it would look like if they
but it does give you kind of a queasy feeling about to protect your eyes. Pretty much, don't let your eyes go through that, or you're gonna die. It did give me that queasy feel. I was like, oh my gosh, he's inside someone's eye, and oh my.
It's just not that her being inside the eye didn't give me so much to think. It's the rats come eating the blood vessels inside the eye. Yeah. So and that's pretty much. I mean, they defeat Starro, who says that he was happy in space, but you don't really care that much about Starro at the end, because he was murdering people. And he also could have just escaped after he took. I understand that the astronauts pulled him in, but after he took them over, he could have just gotten out.
Right.
So we get this button up scene where the news reporters report that Bloodsport and the rest of them saved the island, and she's actually proud of her father, which is a nice little touch.
Yes.
I don't know. Do you remember in the original Suicide Squad, was there like a scene like this with Will Smith and his daughter?
I think there was. There was. I think there was, but I don't 100% remember the ending of that movie. Actually, it's been a while. Yeah. We actually posted their 5th year anniversary on our Instagram and our Facebook page. It was interesting, but yeah, I didn't remember the end of the movie.
Yeah, I remember him feeling some sort of shame because Batman like busted him in front of her.
Right.
But I don't remember if he got to like feel vindicated in her eyes at the end of the movie, like Bloodsport got to feel. I don't know. Bloodsport doesn't actually know that she's seeing this, but we see that she. One of the things that ends their conversation, their back and forth cursing at each other, is her saying, "I'm ashamed of you as a father. I'm ashamed that you're my father," and it kind of shuts him up because there's nothing for him to say. He understands why she's ashamed of him to have him as a father. So it's nice. It's a nice sweet place to end. Well, sort of end this movie. Although there's some after credit scenes, which kind of goes back to the cynical parts. So there's After this, we have the after credit scenes. Well, first of all, he makes a deal with Waller for their freedom and
Right.
the life of his daughter. Um, and only four of them get
Hmm.
out of 14 that actually went to the island.
Hmm.
And then we get, like I said, the last scene being that this guy actually survived. John Cena's body parts are so large.
Yeah, they are. They're huge.
That is his actual leg. Um,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, so he actually survives, and I guess we'll see him in the Peacemaker show that's going to be on HBO Max. So
Hmm.
we'll see. As we said at the beginning of the as we said when we talked about the fight, we'll see how they handle his politics and
Hmm.
if we see him, because right now he's like irredeemable. He killed a really good man. He's like, and he even in the conversation, he's like, "I'll do anything I need to maintain the peace, even kill a hero, American hero like you." It's like, okay.
Hmm.
So we'll see. He's going to be the main protagonist in the show, and there's been successful shows where there's an anti-hero, but he's not necessarily an anti-hero. I'm not sure why you would like him. Um, so
Well, I think that people that believe in the fairy tale of American exceptionalism would probably be like, would probably eat this stuff up. I mean,
hmm,
that's probably where that comes from. But then maybe,
maybe
that
this
there will be that the show is trying to examine, kind of poking holes into that fairy tale.
so
Maybe that's what they're going for. I
subvert
don't
that
know. Yeah,
expectation that it will be jingoistic.
exactly,
Okay, maybe
exactly.
we'll see. All right. Anything else you want to talk about? We've actually been talking for over an hour and a half,
Yeah.
an hour
Yeah,
and
I
40.
think I think pretty much. I think that, like I said, in the non-spoiler part, that I really enjoyed this movie. I think that it's pretty well done, and it's probably right up there in terms of DCU movies
Mm,
overall. So, um, but definitely not for kids.
no.
Definitely, it deserves its R rating,
Yeah.
and also. And also, to be fair, the whole Marvel DC rivalry. I think that Deadpool, there's definitely some more, especially Deadpool 2. There's definitely a lot more kind of cringeworthy, gratuitous moments from Deadpool 2 that like shocked me a lot more than anything that, I mean, some of the things that were here.
Sure.
Here was kind of like, yeah. So that's kind of like where I kind of put it in terms of, without the kind of like the fourth wall breaking, of course.
That said, that Deadpool then was a Fox property. We'll see what Deadpool 3 looks like. I know that they said they're going to try to keep it an R rating. We'll see if Disney goes to the extremes that they.
I don't believe I just don't buy it. I really don't buy it. I think that if they are gonna do that, they're gonna put a lot of their stuff on Hulu. And I mean, you watch Hulu, there's a lot of stuff that are like, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
Disney does own Hulu,
yeah,
but
the Disney.
we don't kind of associate Disney with Hulu, too much,
Yeah,
unless you see those like bundle deals and stuff like that, where oh yeah, we're kind of indirectly related. But honestly, I just don't buy Disney is going to go that way. I just don't buy it.
no, I don't. I don't know if they're gonna. They're I don't think they'll ever release something as extreme as this. I think they. I mean,
Yeah.
they are going to probably still release rated R movies under that Searchlight banner. I don't know if they're going to show up on Disney Plus though. They'll show up like you
That's
said.
the thing. That's the thing. I just don't think that they're going to go that extreme. And I mean, even I mean, even like for Venom. I
Mhm.
mean, if they ever do something like that, they're not going to show. I
But
mean,
so that's a Sony
yeah,
movie. Then
yeah, that's
Sony
true.
can do whatever they want.
Right, right, right,
So
right.
yeah. So I don't know. We shall see. I don't think they're ever going to release anything as extreme as this movie though.
No, I don't think so
They
either.
they have they have a
Disney is too tame.
they have a larger. It's not even about being too tame. It's about being able. They have to protect the larger brand, and they're not gonna let an artist go off the reservation like to for this a movie, and even a movie that could make a couple $100 million, even if this movie, a movie that say Sean Gunn, sorry, is it Sean Gunn? No,
James Gunn.
James Gunn.
James.
Sean Gunn is his brother. Even a movie that James Gunn directs, even if it made $1 billion, their empire is worth several $billion. Like, so they're not going to risk their empire over like one movie. So they're not gonna deviate too much from that Disney brand. So I don't think even if they release a rated R movie, it's not going to have so much gratuitous violence in it.
Right.
The director will probably get a lot of notes, and we will see. I think the first test out of the gate there of something that might show up on that is going to be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to be Deadpool, and we'll see how many notes Ryan Reynolds gets when he writes the script. I mean, whoever directs it, whoever is going to get notes as well. But Ryan Reynolds is the writer of both of those movies, and he'll probably get lots of notes. So
yeah, most likely.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is what we thought. We've been talking for almost 2 hours now, but we are interested to hear what you guys think. Is there anyone actually on the stream have any questions?
I don't think so. Let me see. In terms of the chat, nope, I don't. Let me see. YouTube, nothing so far, and no comments from no comments either.
And I'm not logged into Twitch. We actually need to log into Twitch next week to make sure that we are keeping track of that as well. Well, as I said, we want to hear from you guys. Please comment down below and like and subscribe for more content like this. And we will be back next week to talk about, well, a couple of things. Titans is coming out tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So is What If is coming out next week. It's coming out next week, and then the last episode of The Bad Batch. So that is what we will talk about next week.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.